So you hear a lot about assault weapons and proposed legislation for restricting them. Now this brings up the question, what exactly is and what exactly isn't an assault weapon? Before we get into defining what an assault weapon is, one thing we need to look at is another term that's kind of used at times interchangeably, maybe correctly, maybe not, with assault weapon, and that is assault rifle. Now, an assault rifle is actually a pretty well-defined thing, and that's very easy to pull up what it is. So what's recognized as being the first assault rifle, and the term where assault rifle came from, was a rifle used during World War II by the Germans, the Sturmgewehr, or STG-44, Sturmgewehr meaning storm or assault rifle. Now the reason they kind of came up with this was that as war progressed, they saw that the distances between engagements was getting shorter and shorter to the point to where at most you were going 200, maybe 300 yards. So they developed a different rifle to be able to be used in this capacity. Then after the STG-44, you saw things like the M16 and the AK-47 come along, which are also assault rifles. But the main idea behind the assault rifle was that it was replacing a full-powered battle rifle and a submachine gun, and was going into something in between the two. Now, the U.S. Army defines what an assault rifle is, and this is a definition that's also found in other places. So let's go over each of those individual criteria. As far as select fire, that basically means that it needs to be capable of shooting both semi-auto and full auto, and having a selector switch to let you select between full and semi-auto. Full auto means you pull down the trigger, and as long as you got more rounds in there, it will just keep firing them automatically, and they don't stop coming out until you take your finger off the trigger. Semi-automatic means that you pull the trigger, it fires one round, brings in the next one to have it prepped to be fired, but that one won't fire until you release the trigger and pull it again. It has to have an intermediate power cartridge. That means that it is going to be a cartridge that is more powerful than a handgun round, but less powerful than the traditional rifle cartridges that were around at the time. Generally, you want to have ammunition be put in detachable box magazines. That is a magazine that can come completely out of the rifle and another one be brought into it. And it needs to have an effective range of 300 yards or 300 meters, because that is what they were finding where most combat was taking place. Now, there are a number of rifles that go into that very easily, such as the previously mentioned STG-44, AK-47, and M16. Some things that don't fit in there because of various different reasons. Something like an FN FAL is not considered an assault weapon because it has a full power cartridge in it. You're going to have things like the SKS, which are not an assault weapon because they don't have a detachable magazine. It's also going to be true of the M1 Garand, although it also has a full power round and also isn't an assault weapon. And also rifles like the AR-15 are not assault rifles because they do not have select fire. They are semi-automatic only. You go to the M16, which is a modification of it that has select fire capability, and that is an assault rifle. Which also kind of goes to show that the AR in AR-15 doesn't actually stand for assault rifle. It's actually just an abbreviation for Armalite. Every firearm that they made has an AR designation in front of it, the AR-1 being a bolt action, which is definitely not an assault rifle, and the AR-9 and the AR-17 being 12-gauge shotguns, so they're not even rifles. So that leads us into assault weapon, and assault weapon is a bit more difficult to define. The origins of assault weapon are also a bit more murky. There's two different places that it looks like it could have come from, and maybe these happen independently or maybe they happen the same. It seems that there were some firearms retailers that were needing to come up with a much more marketable name for a certain class of firearms that weren't quite assault rifles, and they came up with assault weapon. It also really kind of took ground with a lot of people that were proponents of stricter gun control, that they were using assault weapon a lot. But assault weapon was always just kind of a loose, not really well-defined term. And even now, it's still really not very definitive. You've got a lot of different jurisdictions defining it differently. You've got a lot of things including some things and including others. Probably the biggest place where it was ever defined would have been the 1994 assault weapons ban. Now, that 1994 ban defined it as a semi-automatic rifle with a detachable box magazine that had at least two of the following features: a pistol grip, a folding or telescoping stock, a threaded barrel to allow various different things such as a flash suppressor or a muzzle brake or a suppressor, a bayonet mount, or a muzzle-mounted grenade launcher. Then it also went into some things concerning semi-automatic pistols and also certain shotguns. And beyond that, it also named a few specific rifles specifically that were pretty much banned in any type of configuration. And I'm kind of curious where a few of these particular features on there ended up on the list, particularly the grenade launcher and the bayonet mount. I mean, as far as a bayonet mount, I mean, has anyone been stabbed by a bayonet that was attached to a rifle like in the last 40 years? Has that even happened? I mean, I could see someone getting stabbed with a bayonet that's loose but actually attached to a rifle. I mean, you just don't really see that happening. That's kind of odd. And then grenade launchers sound scary, but since you basically can't get live grenades, all you can do is launch dummy grenades with it, and that's really going to be no more dangerous than a potato cannon or a t-shirt cannon. But one of the big things on there that was always kind of an idea behind assault weapons was basically the features being cosmetic features. That's what they were referred to as a lot. And that kind of gets into a little bit of the weirdness going on with defining it. Now, in the criminal justice work, Kids and Assault Weapons, Social Problem or Social Construction by Decker and Ruddle from 2005, we get their comments on a little bit of the issues with it being a cosmetic difference in them. One problem inherent in the study of assault weapons is that the classifications of assault weapons are based on cosmetic features of firearms. For instance, the Colt AR-15 series of semi-automatic rifles, the civilian version of the fully automatic M16 rifle issued to U.S. soldiers, was subject to the 1994 assault weapons restrictions. But the Ruger Mini-14 rifle was not banned. Yet the Mini-14 is the same caliber, has a similar barrel length, the same semi-automatic action, and can use magazines that hold 30 rounds of ammunition. The only real meaningful difference between the two firearms is cosmetic. The AR-15 looks more dangerous. And I think that that's where really a lot of defining assault weapons comes from. Basically just picking weapons that look scary. You can basically show a lot of people that don't know a lot about firearms different ones and ask them which ones have like a sporting purpose and which ones don't. And they do this without realizing that a lot of the things that they consider assault weapons really are not much different than some of these others, or in fact in many cases have a much less powerful round. I mean, generally speaking, your grandpa's old hunting rifle has a round in it that is much more powerful than the .223 or .556 round that you see in the AR-15. And without realizing that a lot of these features that they're picking out on them really don't make much difference on it. Like a bayonet mount doesn't do practically anything. and that a lot of things like pistol grips are just there to make it easier to aim and to make it where you can have better accuracy, because it doesn't matter if you're hunting or shooting targets, you want to be able to hit what you're aiming at. Really, the biggest concern to me is a lot of people jumping on to banning these without even really realizing what it is that they're trying to ban and what the difference between them and other ones is. You hear so many people that say that they are fine for, you know, rifles for like hunting and just for like regular target practice and stuff, but you know, these other ones are just made for killing. Look, all guns are basically designed to be able to kill. And generally speaking, anything firearms wise that's able to kill a deer is going to do a pretty good job at killing a person. So I just want people to take a little bit of time and look at what exactly all it is that they're looking at banning when they propose these bans, to try to figure out a little bit more there so that you understand that there's not a lot of difference in a lot of these, and in many cases they're just not very well defined. So if you like this video, you can be sure to give it a thumbs up and a like. You can also leave a comment in the comment section to tell me what you thought of it or to make any other general comments. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can make sure that you catch all of the videos I post and not miss anything. I'm Jeremy with Poindexter G, and we'll see you next time.